Now that we've introduced all of today's speakers, let's start off with some basic facts about this year's conference. This ICC is different because for the first time, we're offering two ways to experience it. The ICC in-person event is going to take place on September 20th and 21st at the Harris Center in Folsom, California, and preceded by the pre-conference registration and reception on September 19th. Yep, that is less than 6 weeks away. And then the ICCX virtual event is on October 3rd through the 5th. Doug, I'd like to bring you in now. Can you tell us why there are two ways to attend this year and why ICCX is the theme? Also, what factors went into that decision?
Yeah, sure. So before the pandemic, we did many conferences in person at the Harris Center in Folsom, California, and those were really popular. Obviously, with the pandemic, we had to take a break from that, but we did pivot and do virtual conferences for ICC for the last 2 years. And those also proved to be really popular. And one thing we noticed with the virtual conference is that we were able to get a lot more attendees from all different parts of the world that maybe wouldn't have been possible for them to come to the in-person conference before because of certain restrictions and also just limitations of space for the venue and things like that. So this year, we decided we did want to bring the in-person conference back to have that in-person experience again, but we didn't want to lose the option for so many of the people that had gotten familiar and enjoyed their time experience the conference as a virtual event. So that's why we wanted to keep both those options intact for this year, and that's why we're doing it as two different events, as you mentioned, the in-person and the virtual. So those were some of the factors that went into that decision and doing it the way we're doing it. As far as the theme itself, ICCX, the X means 10, and it's the 10th year of doing the conference. And we thought that was a noteworthy milestone to celebrate. We also were kind of fascinated with X as an abstraction for an exchange of ideas and interactivity and intersection. And all of those things are very fundamental to what the conference is, where people from all different industries with different experiences and different levels of understanding cognition can come together and share ideas and network together and exchange what they're doing. So that duality of meaning was really interesting for us, and we wanted to pursue that. We thought ICCX made for a really good theme for this year.
Absolutely. So besides the obvious, can you tell us how the in-person and virtual events will be different?
Yeah, so obviously in person, that's a big difference. You get to be there in person at the Harris Center and take part in the sessions that are going on live. You'll be able to meet the speakers face to face, as well as other attendees, and then also many staff members from Inductive Automation that will be there. So that's the biggest difference. Obviously, in-person networking. All those same sessions will be available for the virtual conference. The difference there is that they will be recorded during the in-person and they'll be available to watch as videos in the virtual conference. That being said, there's going to be some content in the virtual conference that is not part of the in-person conference. Specifically, there's going to be a whole track of international sessions put on by our distributor partners. And those sessions will be taking places or happening at different times, I should say, that are appropriate for the region that the distributors are over, as well as in the native language for those regions. That was a really great addition to the conference the last few years. The virtual conference, we wanted to bring that back for the virtual conference this year. And there will be a few other sessions that are taking place only virtually. So even if you do come in person, the virtual conference will still have a little bit of additional content you didn't see in person. And so it's worth coming for that. There's also going to be workshops during the virtual conference. Workshops are something we did in person before and were very popular, but we thought making them virtual this time around would open it up for many more people to take part in those. But the workshops will be great experience for people to learn from ignition experts about different subjects, and those will be taking place during the week of the virtual conference. So that's another thing that's going to be part of the virtual conference that will not be part of in person. That being said, if you really get your heart set in a workshop and you're coming to the in-person conference, don't fear, because all those workshops will be taking place a couple weeks later, and you can still sign up for those and take part in a virtual workshop after the in-person conference is over. So there'll be meals at the in-person conference, obviously, and then there'll be some swag there. So there's some of the key differences between in-person and virtual. So a little more detail about some of the considerations for the in-person conference. Obviously, there is some ticket and travel costs that are associated with that. Well, it's because it's in person. You've got to get your person to Folsom, so a little bit more cost there. There's also a few COVID requirements that are requirements of the actual venue itself. So the Harris Center, which is where we're hosting the in-person conference, requires that all in-person attendees must show a proof of vaccination against COVID-19 or proof of a negative COVID test for each day they enter the venue. So if you're planning to come in person, make sure you have that prepared if you want to take part in the in-person conference. There's also dress code. We recommend business casual for in-person attire, and there's a code of conduct as well for it basically boils down to keeping the conference environment educational, professional, safe, and harassment free for everyone. All that still applies to our virtual conference as well. If you want more details about the code of conduct, you can visit our conference website, go to the community page, and then it's linked at the bottom. You can get more details there. So to talk a little bit more about the workshops we're offering, these are the virtual workshops taking place during the virtual conference week, and we're offering 6 different topics taught by either our experts at inductive automation or the experts as our strategic partners. So those topics are using perspective layouts effectively, Docker basics for an ignition development environment, designing navigation for mobile responsive applications using perspective, creating effective scripting structures in Ignition, modern low-code manufacturing workflows in batch processing, and then exploring how digital twins and data models are automatically ingested by cloud services with MQTT and Ignition for digital transformation. So 6 great topics to choose from there. A little more info on how we'll be delivering those workshops. We'll be using a platform to allow us to deliver those live and online. If anyone has ever come to any of our online trainings for like our core class or scripting, we're using the exact same platforms that we use to deliver those classes. So it'd be a great experience for attendees. There is a cost associated with virtual workshops. It's $125 per seat. And there is a limitation of 20 attendees for each workshop. So that being said, there's going to be multiple occurrences of several of the workshops. So if you find that the workshop you really want is full, there should be hopefully another time you can sign up for to take part in that. But we do have a cutoff. The last day to purchase a workshop seat is September 18th. So if you do want to get in on one of these workshops, you'll want to be able to get in pretty soon to get your seat claimed. To do that, you just go to our conference website and go to the schedule section, and you'll find a workshop schedule that has all the workshop times listed, as well as buttons to register yourself for one of those workshops, and it's linked right there on the page if you're curious.